Connor hit us from San Diego. He said, I know it's early, but if you had to draft the top conference games you would like to attend this year on the tour, what would they be? Connor, I'm going in no particular order here, but I do accept your challenge. Oregon at Penn State. That's happening pretty early. Oregon plays at Penn State in week 5. So sign me up for this. Penn State's shot here to really punch up, that's what I'm most interested in. So Penn State, the reputation has been they beat everyone they're supposed to. They lose to everyone they're supposed to. Well, is this not a spot, at least perceptionally, where you look at Penn State, you say, I think they're the 3rd or 4th best program in the Big Ten. I think Oregon's better than them. Well, I mean, they just played them in the Big Ten title game. They lost to them. So I think most folks would look and say, Oregon versus Penn State. Oregon should win that game. All right, stop. Stop right there. If that's what you think, that's all I need. That means this is Penn State's chance. Now, you do realize, actually I say that sarcastically, because I don't think many realize yet, that Oregon is 109th in returning production. They are at a significant schedule disadvantage in this game because they'll be playing their 5th straight game, and Penn State will be off a bye at home. Penn State brings back a ton. Like I said, Oregon doesn't. Is this the underdog spot that we think it will be? Actually, I don't think it will be. But I think 51+% of the public right now would think this is an underdog spot for Penn State. Well, anyway, that's all I need. If that's perception, then even though perception is not always reality, it will be for our purpose, plural of purpose. This is their chance to punch up. Probably going to be a good gift there if I go and clip that later. And so for that reason, and also for the reason of seeing a big game in Beaver Stadium, even if they curse it with Big Noon Kickoff, it's not up to me, guys. It's not up to me. I'd love to be there. LSU Bama is always on my list. It's one of my favorite games, has been for a long time. LSU at Alabama, that is week 11. Now here's the premise here. I think LSU is legit this year. And I also think Bama will be radically better in totality under Kalen DeBoer. But we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. But overall, I think the net result is they'll level up in year 2. So I think it'll be big on big. I think it'll be a good matchup. It's always one of the games of the year in the SEC environment-wise. And I also think about the years LSU popped. The years LSU's had their vintage teams. 03, they won the title. They won in Tuscaloosa. 07, they won the title. They won in Tuscaloosa. That 2011 team ended up winning in Tuscaloosa in the game of the century. They lose in the rematch in the national title game. Still a special team, though. 2019, Joe Burrow and company, they go into Tuscaloosa and win. So the great LSU teams, they've all had one thing in common. They go through Bama at Bama. So if this year's LSU team is to be that, history says it's a good spot. You would think that being on the road's tough, but in this series, the road team is dominated. Like both ways, the road team is largely dominated. And so I'm picking that one. It's a little bit later in the season, but I'm picking that one. Always a great conference game in the SEC. Now, to go out of both of the big conferences, because we care about conference championships in totality on this show. We care about conference races in totality here at Pate State. Give me Clemson at Georgia Tech in week 3. This is not on many radars right now. It should be. I think Georgia Tech is a sleeper team to win the ACC this year. I think that they're sitting there at home early in the season. It could be an ACC quarterback of the year type matchup. Now, I know that they'll hear that in Dallas and they won't like it. They'll hear that in Louisville and they won't like it. I said matchup. I got Kay Klubnik and I got Haynes King. I mean, I've got a team that is priding itself and going toe-to-toe with the big boys at Georgia Tech, maybe even becoming one themselves. I think Georgia Tech's got the inside track to Charlotte if they win this game. I'm dead serious. Colin, you're showing me Clemson's schedule right now. By chance, do we have Georgia Tech's schedule? Because we talked about this last week. Okay, so picture this with me. You look at their schedule. We have them playing a couple of Tier 1 games. It's Clemson and it's Georgia. Both of those are at home. Only one of them is a conference game. It's this one. If they win this, which is certainly not out of the realm of possibility, they don't even have a Tier 2 game on their schedule. It just goes straight to Tier 3. So it's very, very navigable for them. So for that reason, and also for Clemson, if Clemson loses to LSU in week 1, they're in wounded animal mode already. And if they beat LSU in week 1, they could be overhyped. They could be overrated, at which point I'll just be asking, what are they rated? I think this will be a really good game. Let me cut in really quick and ask, look, prayer hands, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you think you're subscribed, check and make sure. Over 50% of you aren't. It's free, it doesn't sign you up for anything, and it helps us keep the show free, college football year-round, the way God intended it. All right, back to the clip. I think Texas Tech at Arizona State is going to be good. I'd draft that one. Since I'm not being held to these, this could be the Big 12 game of the year. Two totally different approaches to this season. Arizona State, you know they lost Cam Scatterwood. They basically didn't lose anything else. They didn't lose any coaches either. They're number 2 in the country in returning production. They're top 5 on both sides of the ball. Texas Tech brought in the number 3 portal class. And they play in week 8. That one's in Tempe. That is a big week. There are some big games that week. I think that's the third Saturday in October. I think it is. So I'm looking forward to that one. I'll tell you another one, to go back to the SEC for a second. I almost went Texas OU, which honestly it could be on here. Texas plays at Florida this year. This is one of those non-traditional mega brand matchups. They don't play regularly. It's not a traditional rivalry. But Texas and Florida are two of the biggest brands in the history of the sport. SEC and beyond, two of the biggest brands in college football. So they play. That's a big deal. They played last year. Lagway either got hurt or didn't play at all, and it was just a blowout favor of Texas. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. This game happens in week 6. Arch Manning, DJ Lagway, assuming both of them are on the field. Florida will have already played LSU and Miami. Texas will have played at Ohio State in week 1. So they will have already both played big games on the road. They will have already played big competition. I mean, think about that trip for Texas. I don't think many people are talking about this right now because many people are just going to look at that Florida over-under win total, and they're going to not expect much from Florida. And I'm telling you, Florida's going to be a really good team this year. I think they're going to be a really good team. And I think if you changed their schedule out, then they'd be one of the favorites to make the playoff. They won't be because their schedule's tough again. But the thing about it is they're not playing their schedule this day. They're just playing Texas. They're playing one team. And so Texas, I think, may have their hands full. I could have picked a number of Florida games, actually. I'm very intrigued by this team. Just finding out what the caliber of that team is. We won't know when they play Long Island in week 1, but we will know by week 5 or 6 or whenever that is. Last one, of course. I mean, of course, if you're drafting conference games, I'm going to Ohio State, Michigan. This game's in Ann Arbor this year. Our chat has been especially toxic lately with Ohio State, Michigan flavor. And you can imagine what it looks like. It's a bunch of, well, we've beaten you 4 in a row. Yeah, but we won a national title. And each one thinks that the other is more significant. And, hey, we love the engagement, so keep it up. Keep it clean, but keep it up. Last week, some of you got over the line. Jesse had to swing the band hammer. He had to be the bad guy. I came back in afterwards. I changed it to just a suspension. So shame on Jesse. Jesse's the principal, and then I'm the cool substitute teacher that comes in on the backside. But it's classic streak versus title. What do you care about more? Both of them will be talking that way. Now, here's the other thing. There's the mental hurdle aspect right now, which we cannot ignore anymore. Once Michigan won this thing last year, I was convinced this is a bona fide mental issue. It's a psychological issue for Ohio State. So that doesn't go anywhere. It just rests for a little while because you only play one game a year. It's a rivalry game. It's the best rivalry in college football, in my opinion, so it carries maximum value. You really don't need to sell yourself on this. But here's what else we don't know that I'm growing more and more concerned about. The whole NCAA cloud that is lingering over Michigan, by this time, do we have finality on that? Have we found out one way or another where the NCAA is going on this? I mean, there are all kind of wild headlines and wild rumors about this right now, and I'm not trafficking in any of them. I still stand my ground on that. When something's official, I'll be happy to talk about it. Until then, not so much. That's what your local message board is for. But yeah, give me Ohio State, Michigan.